Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor. Well, today's guest is nothing short of a Wonder Woman in the world of leadership. Kim Lancer is the CEO and founder of Tall Poppies Leadership, a global leadership development company empowering bold, confident leaders to stand tall and lead with impact. Kim holds a unique position, having worked across 3 continents in dynamic cities like New York, London, and her hometown of Perth, personal favourite, bringing a truly global lens to her work. With over 25 years of experience, she's a leadership powerhouse who has coached and elevated thousands of executives across AXS and Fortune 100 companies, including Goldman Sachs, MasterCard, Deloitte, Woodside, and JP Morgan Chase. Her secret? A deep belief that true leadership begins with knowing, trusting, and being yourself. How amazing is that? Through executive coaching, high-performing team frameworks, and leadership programs, Kim helps leaders transform mindset into action and action into lasting success. Professionally trained in adult learning behaviour through NYU School of Professional Studies and the Talios Leadership Institute in Philadelphia, with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication from Curtin University, Kim is also a devoted mother of 3, an unapologetic fan of 90s dance hits, which if I'd known, Kim and I would have been out clubbing, when I was last in Perth, and is known for her fancy footwork on the dance floor. She's smart, real, warm, as you'll get to know, and wildly effective. Please welcome the incredible Kim Lancer to the show.
Wow, thank you, Ingrid. That was beautiful. Feeling very confident.
Good, as you should. Now, Kim, Tall Poppies Leadership, it's quite the name, especially in Australia. That whole phrase has a particular meaning. What made you choose this title for your consulting practice, and why do you think Australia has such a tall poppy syndrome?
I chose the name because I really wanted to challenge the way that we were brought up in Australia and just flip the whole script on it. Because once I'd worked overseas, I realized, it isn't normal to squish our potential or to be humble to that extent. And so I remember telling someone this in the US when I was planning to start the business. And she actually said to me, wow, you believe in that so strongly. Why don't you just call the company that? And I was like, yes. And then I've got to come and say it's not about tall poppy syndrome squishing down. Let's actually stand tall and stand up. And to me, it makes sense that it's so prevalent in Australia, even though it isn't in the UK and the US, because we have, this beautiful focus on humility and equality, and, we love a good underdog story. So there's a really positive part to the concept of tall poppy syndrome, as in give everyone a chance. And I love that. I think that's a beautiful part of Australian culture that I grew up in. But having lived in multiple other places, then I really realized that actually that is just downplaying our achievements, what we can do, and that is not best bringing out happiness and success. So no, I don't want this syndrome to keep going in Australia, and I want everyone to step into their power.
Yeah, I love what you've said there, because I actually think that, yeah, you're right. I mean, there are all of those beautiful attributes to the Australian culture and way of life, which is, like you said, about equality and inclusion and those sorts of things. But at the same time, there is a theme kind of running underneath all of that. That's like, listen, don't get too far above your station. Don't think that you're better than what you are. I mean, even in certain circles, I have heard the phrase used, you just pull them down a peg or two. They're getting a little bit big for their boots.
Yeah.
And what I love about you calling your practice Tall Poppies Leadership is you're actually saying, well, we're taking that and we're going to flip it on its head and make it something that people can aspire to being, rather than something that, is used to make people, less than what they actually are.
Yeah, because essentially, if you're always kind of pulling yourself down or other people are, you're not really showing all parts of yourself. And that reminds me about, how we celebrate wins at the end, but we don't always tell somebody, I entered this competition, I'm trying to win this RFP. Like, we don't share that because we just want to be known for here. But what if it was okay to do that and enjoy the journey, as well as actually, of course, I want to be celebrated. Like, I want to tell everyone I'm proud of something. I tried it, but it didn't work. Like, all of these elements feel fuller, more real to just happiness, let alone business success, which of course are intertwined.
It's so true, isn't it? And I think a lot of people are crying out for that, just having people on their team, having some cheerleaders. But I think we don't even risk, sometimes saying that we're applying for something in case we don't get it. And then what will we say? Oh, I didn't get it, rather than, like you said, enjoying the process and having people go, well done, we know you can do it, have a go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, that brings me to my next question around confidence, which is a real theme throughout your messaging. I've experienced people appearing confident, but actually when you dig under the surface, it's more hubris than it is authentic levels of confidence. What do you see as genuine confidence, and what's the difference in a leader that has real confidence over the appearance or likeness of confidence?
Yeah, genuine confidence is this feeling of like belief in your capabilities. It's this feeling of certainty, of assurance. It's not overly cocky. It doesn't relate to everything. Like, I'm confident, but I'm not confident about everything. I went into a cooking class last week, just felt ridiculously intimidated. No confidence at cooking at all. So there's this element of if I genuinely feel I can do something, that's a beautiful feeling to take care of. That's different to like a perception of confidence, which, by the way, is often the fake it till you make it. So I'm going to say something controversial that I completely believe in that. And that's for two reasons. One, because your physiology, the concept of faking it, is like how you can breathe or stand up, which I did before this podcast, or listen to music, and you get yourself in the best state. So that doesn't always mean that we know how to do something because we haven't had enough practice, and therefore we have to tap into temporary faking it confidence. So that's one part, makes sense. The other thing is we can only get confident if we actually do practice something. So how can you be genuinely feeling like I've got this if you haven't had enough reps? And yet as adults, we want to do the first podcast and be amazing. We want to do the first sales meeting. Like, we have disproportionate expectations.
Yeah.
So the interim faking it, not genuine, serves you for a bit.
Yeah.
But not long term. Because in this era, you might just put it out there, but you don't truly believe that you could do it.
Right.
You're just putting on a little suit in the interim. Great in the interim, but what you'd want is to turn it in. And therefore, I believe I can go into this meeting and I'm going to get a question that I've never had before, and I can deal with it. That's kind of a genuine confidence. Like, I'm good at this. I deserve this. I can deal with different things. But not across everything,
Well, I absolutely love that. I think that's being realistic, and that's being self-aware as well. When you kind of know your limitations and you're okay with that, it's total self-acceptance. But I also really appreciate you saying, or giving us all permission to kind of fake it temporarily, because if we waited until we were confident, until we had the competence to actually do anything, we could be waiting a very, very long time. And actually, life gives us opportunities, and we sometimes really need to step into those things, and we learn as we go, and we start to build that muscle through doing and iterating and reflection and all of those sorts of things. So I really appreciate what you said there. Tell me about the impact that, like fake confidence, like, because of the amount of, like, the breadth and the level of leaders that you've worked with, if you don't have to name anyone, but think about a leader that might have perhaps not had as much confidence as they appeared to, and the impact that that had on their ability to be an effective leader, as opposed to somebody who had that real, that grounded, lovely, quiet strength, of confidence, of knowing their capabilities.
Yeah, I think the key word there is grounded. Yeah, so the difference between genuine versus interim. In genuine, I believe. I believe that if you're in a business that I'm offering a wonderful service.
Yes.
I believe that I'm leading in a great way, and there's probably a better way, but genuinely I feel it. Now, the only way you can actually get to that place of feeling it, again, is to have done it, to have got feedback, to have been rejected thousands of times that you and I would have been. There is no other way to get confident. And I'm asked about this all the time. I'm like, you have to go through discomfort. And it's actually a swinging pendulum, because the more senior you go, and I've coached very senior individuals, they're all C-suite, they're all in Fortune 100 organizations, the less acceptable it is to admit that you may not be confident. And yet,
Wow.
I'm the one who hears all the secrets. That's what executive coaching is, or team development. People are vulnerable and they tell you what they're really thinking. And everybody has self-doubt. So if we all have self-doubt and yet we're confident about this piece, it's really important just to normalize that, as in, oh, okay, you're questioning your approach here. That's a great, healthy thing to do. And you wouldn't always know because you haven't perhaps done it before. So that's one part of it. I think the difference comes for people who are constantly questioning themselves. So that's borderline insecure when you're talking about the impact of leaders. And that is, you can tell from their language that they're actually questioning their own capability and power.
Yes,
Yes,
right.
And it's a slight variation, like sometimes, and you can play with this as well. So the difference between saying, I think this is the solution, versus saying, I believe it is, versus saying, I know this is the right path, versus saying, this is what the research says.
Right.
So there's a language difference in how I say it. It's hard for me to fake that because I'd be in the moment and actually just be being real.
Yes.
And then there's also the tone and conviction that comes with it. We've all seen a leader say, this is the future strategy and we should really follow it in this diplomatic way. And that organizational change is they're not behind it.
Right.
So it's those two elements is how it comes out.
Yes.
I also, the third theme I always notice with confidence, and that's why I feel really passionate about sort of dispelling this myth. So I remember a few months ago, I had a global HR leader, incredibly polished, presents for a living all the time. Imagine how many times he would have had to go to the C-suite and present a people-orientated initiative. And yet when coaching him, he said, oh, well, I'm going to have to go to the board. And for him, the board was a completely different level, very intimidating characters on this board.
Right.
And yet the skill behind it, Ingrid, is the same. He has to present, he has to deliver a business case. So the myth there is sometimes we question our confidence, or we're not confident when we do something that we perceive as new. But actually, that's what the coaching was so effective for, because it was reminding him, well, how many years have you actually been influencing, positioning this, understanding the lay of the landscape, who are you dealing with, what's important, and tapping back into his power so that he could go in and feel the strongest leader that he was. And that whether it was a board or a C-suite or just his team, there wasn't that much difference. And that is a real theme that plays on people's minds across all businesses and takes away from their power.
So right, Kim. I mean, I was just wondering about that man if he didn't have you, how much that might have affected his ability to go into a situation that, objectively, if we have the 100 feet sort of view of his ability in a million different situations that would be equivalent to that board presentation, he could clearly do it. And yet his own belief system, because of the audience, was telling him, no, the stakes are higher here. It really matters more. If you muck this up, blah, 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 whatever that pattern was. And then being able to work with someone like you or with you and for him to be able to shift that and really stand in the truth of what he can do and what he has done.
Exactly. Exactly. And how can we do that for ourselves? That's just a common cycle. Like, I would think something was higher stakes. When you come into it, you have this version of what it is in your own mind. So we need perspective. That's why intentionality, leadership development, anything that you're doing to raise your own awareness from an external perspective that can help you internally, amazing. And also, it's hard not to just refer back to skills in that moment. So again, most people, when they're promoted to the next level, they're always thinking about, right, what's another accreditation I can get? What else can I put on my resume that will look like something? But that's just like you said about faking it again, because they don't actually change their belief about what they're capable about. So when they come back and are reminded of that, and like, it's not as different, I can use the skills I have before, let me just get clarity. And with that comes conviction. Those two pieces, it's an absolute joy to be able to remind people of that. And also, I think it's one of the most meaningful, because our skills and experience are already there. We're at this amazing place, but that is not the gap I see in, coaching senior individuals around the world. It's the fact that we have massive self-doubt, but we think that it's just us when it's not. You're actually working with your brain, I constantly think my brain is set to like sabotage me permanently. It is so negative that I must be silly if I don't every day do things to navigate that. Like, why would I give all my power to a disproportionate negative type of thinking? And so high performers and, what we do in the world is remind them, okay, just as intentional as you are about creating strategy and vision, do the same for yourself, because otherwise your inner critic is just going to take over and it'll tell you all sorts of things. And again, every level. And then finally, I would add to that, the more senior you go, the lonelier it is.
Right.
And then that's for business owners. We need to bounce ideas off somebody. If you're the CEO, you definitely can't share. There's this mass pressure to be polished, and yet you're wondering about your idea as well. As confident as you are, there's some part of your new vision for the business or the team that you're wondering, how will that work? So safely, people will talk about that in coaching or with team development. But it's really important to bring them back to, or give them an option to actually look at their confidence and have perspective. Like, what's worked? How can I be analytical? What should I use? How will I manage my headspace? Just things that take 5 minutes at a time, but also really important and often are repetitive. It's just part of the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd like to explore some of those things further down in the conversation, because I think that there would be a lot of executives, there would certainly be a lot of senior leaders listening to this podcast, and whether they admit it to anyone else, I mean, there'd be some safe people that they might admit it to. But even to themselves, just going, okay, I've got a situation coming up that I really need to really step into. And I know the theory of that, but I don't know how to do that for myself. So we'll look at some of those things. Before we do, though, without being, I really don't like polarizing, genders, men and women. But there is that stat about men, might have, I think it was something like 30% of the skills for a job, and they'll apply for it. But women won't apply unless they've got something like 90% of the, so is there a difference that you've noticed between the way that men and women show up when it comes to confidence?
There is a difference. And I collate that finding from, seeing themes from thousands of people in different cultural contexts. That said, just like you're careful about stereotypes, of course there is uniqueness in it. So these are generalizations that I've found. There is validity in the fact that there's difference in genders, period, and then we make our own meaning of it. So like you said, with the resumes and how we apply for jobs, that's real research. Same with risk and how men and women take opportunities. It's slightly different. So what I've noticed between the leaders is that men tend to be a bit more polished and take a little bit longer before opening up vulnerably to really get to what's the main issue, if it was relevant to leadership or something personal, whereas women might be more forthcoming in that.
Interesting.
Now, there's a plus minus for both of those.
Of course.
So the polished piece is a lot around pressure that we feel to put up this, level of confidence, and we've got this, and it's based on trust as well. If you feel you're in a safe space, you can open up. The downside of doing that is that you're not actually getting to the real issue. For example, you're in a team group, everyone's talking about an IT issue to fix, but actually underneath that there's a conflict between two people, and they're not talking about the real issue, because it's about the ego of the issue and who's going to solve it.
Yes.
So then you can't solve it as quickly. It takes longer.
Yes.
The upside of that, of course, is you can be overly vulnerable, overshare, and then actually take away from your confidence if you put out that view to other people where it's not safe. Right. So an example of this, last week I had a female leader. She was in a group with 3 other leaders, Fortune 100 company. They're already incredibly high performers. And she opened the call with her 3 colleagues in different offices saying, my confidence just got shot. Now, the next day she was about to present to a billionaire. So what's the plus side of just saying that? Immediately, everybody rallied, immediately reminded her of the situation, of her strengths. She got complete headspace and actually went into that meeting with the best possible. Downside, at the same time, she wouldn't want to say that to the team in a certain setting. So there's this plus minus. That's one theme. So the level of vulnerability and what we share. And the other theme I've noticed is the bias to action. Now, it's not across the board for everyone, but I do get to say these are the themes I've noticed. And of course, our bias to action is mostly related to our styles. So we have different communication styles and different personalities. But I do notice that male leaders, as a generalization, want to solve something quite quickly and therefore may not get the same lesson from it. And at the same time, women may be looking at too many lessons and all the things they could have done in it. Again, plus minus and 2 general themes. So for yourself, you can figure out which one might be relevant for you.
That is very illuminating, actually. As you were describing that, I was thinking of people that kind of fit, that theme. Oh, my goodness, that was really interesting. So tell me a little bit about the programs that you do to, address some of those differences, because how you described that female leader who, opened her call and was vulnerable in that moment and just said, my confidence has just been shot. And you were like, okay, there's pluses and minuses to that. You wouldn't do that in all contexts. But I would imagine that part of the way that we learn, I don't mean to generalize as women, but part of the way that we learn is sometimes about learning the hard way, and but if we can avoid that at certain levels, because that could really, if a leader did that in the wrong situation, like you alluded to before, that could actually be a real nail in somebody's career coffin. And you don't want that. You don't want that perception to happen. So how do you help executives, whether they be male or female, to be a little bit more discerning about, when to be vulnerable and it's going to have, a good impact, especially when that's their go-to, and when to be a little bit more guarded about that, and, how to kind of find that happy medium.
Sure. My observation in the world is not that we have too much oversharing happening.
Okay.
Right. That's not what's happening in business and organizations, especially, in the New York framework, in the London frame here, it's put our best foot forward. So there is an element of that, like, let me not downplay too much. Let me just disclose information in a safe environment. Same with how we take feedback. Take feedback from people that you think actually have the best intention in mind. We've all received feedback, hence why we fear it, from people who actually were trying to compare or compete. So you don't take that on board. We're discerning about that, hence, guard, no guard. I think the bigger obstacle is there's so much pressure to have the polish and to know all the answers. and then we're, have more and more pressure as we go through our careers, that we actually need an opportunity to say, I'm not sure this time. And so what we do in our programs then is not just think about, okay, what are all the skills and the extra little cherry on top, but it's just creating lots of safety around, let's talk about the candid issue here, or how we could accelerate as a team. So that's a core focus of ours. We want to have confident performing teams. Now, that's not naturally going to happen, because if you've got all the high performers, everyone's naturally swimming in their own lane trying to compete. So let's just be honest. If you're actually going to be really aligned, you'd have to let go of a little ego and be more peer orientated.
Right.
So we set that up through the types of conversations we have, through inviting people to actually talk about themselves as an individual, and then bring that as to how it comes to play, or what are your best practices in your team that comes out here. And then as we do that in the program, so we have a year-long program for high-performing teams. It's 5 team days. Everyone's coached in between. Their level of awareness and intentionality skyrockets. So things like passive conflict, which always happens. We BCC or CC the boss when you don't need to. Things that get in the way, like I'll do it myself instead of empowering. All these common things with business, agnostic to industry. They just go away, because then you've got peers calling up each other to solve something instead of escalating it. You don't have this passive kind of comparison as much. And that all came from understanding that, simple things, people have different values, just get to know that person, be more empathic. So that's one way we build it. The way that it keeps it going also is through your relationships. So I think about leadership development, what we're doing, we don't do anything transactional. So we never do let me do one workshop and, you'll be fixed. I never even think about fixing. Coaching is to accelerate performance, women's leadership to accelerate. It's how can you be happier and more successful, your version. We've got the framework and we're experts at guiding you through it. So that's over time.
Yes.
And the thing that's going to keep it there the most is if you actually had an emotive experience. So think about things that you remember the most from school, being bullied, first time you lost a job, got a job. These are emotional experiences that we have that kind of shape us. We feel rejection, we feel uncomfortable, we remember them. But
yes.
So I'm very intentional about how we design days where people have to think about something they haven't before, and it relates to who I am as a person, as a leader, and it's absolutely commercial and relevant to business. That's one part. Wow. And therefore we don't do, PowerPoint slides or training or sit in rows. We're in a circle. It's like, you're going to be seen. We're going to have a very meaningful, practical dialogue across the year that will shift the way the team will operate, period. Yeah. So I get to feel amazing about that. That's what I want to do in the world, actually change it. And then the other piece is it will keep going longer through each other. So I don't want them to work with us, for 5 years and be dependent. I want us to come in, give them enough of a shift and evolution, and that the way they have relationships, any client's relationships change. And what changes is the processes, how they have meetings, how they actually conduct business. Yes. So those two things are a part of all of our solutions. So that was the confident performing team. Our other sweet spot is executive coaching. That's one-on-one. And we do that, again, over time in a really meaningful way that you can actually practically use it. Because remember, I've got a leadership development background in investment banking. So this is always, let's talk about the things that really matter and then use it. So I'm very business orientated. Most of our clients are very business, just give me the answer. I'm like, no. Slow down and experience it, and then you'll get the answer, and then you'll make more money or save time, or all these common elements. And then the last piece is women's leadership, which is, again, over time, meaningful difference, shift the way you think about yourself, and therefore you're just at a higher level in the future. And probably the last piece, Ingrid, that I've started to think about, in the last few years, because what I'm really trying to do is have 1 million tall poppies. I want this community of people. I don't want people having this myth around, it's only me who doubts myself. I'm like, no, that's just a human thing. Or it's really lonely at the top, so I'll never be vulnerable. No, you just need to manage your thoughts and, intentionally be more confident along the way. We were only ever going to have so much impact if we did this one-on-one. So we've got a team, we've got half of our clients in the US and here, but then I thought about, let's just create something online. So that anybody, any level, if you're starting out and you're 20 and you're wondering, because you're probably hugely susceptible to self-doubt then, you could just do something that's an hour and that would raise your level of confidence and raise your awareness. So I think that's a good place to start. I think about my daughter, my sons, same thing. How can I shift their confidence now, like 3, 16, 21, not have them be a CEO and then think about the implications.
Yeah, wow. I mean, as soon as even before you said about the circle, that they're sitting in a circle, that's exactly the image that I had in my head of your programs, because I thought you're really about like, how you said at the start, you're really about creating lasting change, or it might have been in my introduction of you, about creating lasting change. And to do that, there needs to be a difference in the way that people relate to each other, the way that they have conversations. And how you said it'll change the way that, well after, they've completed their programs with you, it changes the way that they structure meetings, the way that they ask questions, the way that they interact together. And that's where I think, it has a lasting effect when it starts to change language and behaviour.
Yeah.
That's where I think, people start to come into a culture where it's already very strong, and then they understand that these are the norms. So this is how I behave here. This is how I lead here. This is how I engage here. This is how I conduct and facilitate a meeting here. This is how I deal with conflict here. So amazing. And I love that you've now got it accessible for a lot of other people by doing it online as well. So we'll come back to that. That's great. Now, you alluded there to how you said half your business is in the US, half of your business is here. I mean, that's extraordinary. Okay, to successfully have, well, it is, to successfully have built an international practice, a truly international practice, and not just where you're digging around the edges. I mean, you're working with Fortune 100 companies. That really is the pinnacle of the pinnacles. What was, looking back, what was fundamental to that, and what would be your advice for others wanting to expand their consulting practice to somewhere as onerous as the States?
For me, it was a bit different because I had 11 years there. So I knew, so there's one part that I'll tell you about my story, and then something else I think for others doing it. For me, I was in New York for 11 years. I loved it. That was where my career really accelerated. Beautiful network, business network from there. And it was really important when I went back home, it was at that time of life that I really wanted to be home with family, really wanted to set up a business in the way that I thought would really make a difference. I'm like, I want to be able to do it in this place that I've learned so much about, and that I also, I value the level of high performance and drive in the US. So a few things that I did. One, by the way, when I was thinking, I'm going to Perth, it's the furthermost point away, I was thinking, like, are they really going to fly me back? There's definitely a level of doubt that comes in because everything I was doing, a lot of it was in person. But even so, I just went and told clients and everybody I knew, and definitely when I arrived in Perth, I'm going to set up this business. I want to keep you. This is the work I love doing. I also used advocates. So all the women who'd been part of a leadership development program that I loved, I told all of them, right, I'm moving the furthermost point away. I'm concerned that clients won't have budget for travel. I'd love if you could share the value of this. So one of the programs I've been running for 6 years, and they did.
Yes.
And so that's how I kept some of my clients, by just straight out asking for it. So that was a lesson.
Yes.
Also, we actively go back, visit. We have associates in New York. I stay really updated with everything. So that's for all businesses. Need to be able to speak in their language, understand the industries. So that's been an investment. What that looks like is maintaining relationships, making sure that I never really have just a personal trip to the US. It always has a day of business development meetings. I have coffee with all the leaders that I've taught for years, just laying the seeds for the future.
Yes.
That's a real, I feel like that's constant effort. It would be very easy just for us to be Perth-centric. But for me, I have this big vision, and I know that that's about the world. So I have to be very intentional, keep making an ongoing effort about it. That's part of our social media now, being out there more, talking about what we're doing and trying to help people. It's like in the mornings when they wake up. So those are probably two things. For me, the other way was really difficult. So I had convinced everyone of my value in the US. So I was starting a business by myself. I came to Perth and I've missed out on 20 years of friendship.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And even though everyone says I'm from Perth, I actually haven't, I left when I was 23.
Right.
And I've just had family. So I had hundreds of coffees in a different cultural context and put in extreme effort to actually build up the business here.
Yes.
And then talk about my credentials and credibility, because earlier I think I did 2 or 3 years by myself before we hired. And then, of course, it got more complex. We hired. I work with my husband now. So then it was talking about his value and him talking about mine. So that was a little bit of our version. But again, lots of connection. He's American as well, so he has his own network. For other people starting in the US, it's all through relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know another business in Perth and they are doing really well. They've set up in different offices and it's all because he made active effort to find mentors. He has a coach. He constantly connects in with different offices, different locations. I think it's really important to even do little things like when you write the dates, you put it in the US version. You spell it in the US way. You talk and educate yourself on those industries and that landscape. Because it's just like coming into any market. You're an outsider until you're not.
This is one of the things that I think, you've just alluded to here, and they're things that you do as just, good business practice, which is that constant relationship, feeding, nurturing, establishment in some cases, and knowing when you need to create something new, like how you said about that 20-year deficit in Perth of because you were overseas, you didn't have that time to really cement those even on a personal level those friendships. So what you did was you knew I now need to invest in going really full on with having lots and lots of coffees, building those networks, building those contacts, building those relationships, deepening those relationships once they're built and continuing to nurture those. But now that you've got a team, one of the things that struck me in the recent Vistage session that we reconnected at was that you now have instilled that approach and that discipline in your team. You now have those conversations about, how we're going, who we're talking with, how we're going about those relationships. Can you just share with us a little bit about that? And I know that that's me kind of talking about the business development side, but again, it's something that I think for people listening, they think that it's all just, she's just great at all of that stuff. But there's a whole other level when you're now starting to educate the next layer of team members to be able to, like, they'll never be you, Kim, ever. But they can learn a lot about how to be the best version of them with some of the best practices that you've come to know work and are effective. How do you do that with your, next layer?
Yeah, I think firstly it starts with hiring. Lots of people are trying to find transferable skills or the exact skill to show that somebody can do this. But a bit like sales, you would know this. It's about your mindset and your attitude and your aptitude and capability.
Yes.
So you have to start with that. Like, we are going to have people more and more in the future who deeply believe in what we can do in the world. This vision of that they're excited. Oh, I want to be a part of creating 1 million tall poppies. And what we're doing is like changing the way people think about themselves and making them happy. Does that relate? And if it relates, great, you're going to be part of what we're doing. So you're going to be really selective about who you find and not be impressed with skills. Same with our New York associate. In his heart is to care about people. Now, he used to be an ex-risk, legal background, so you wouldn't know it. but how he's able to connect with clients in a very high performing industry is exactly what they need.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. And then second, of course, any business where you just have like the leader or the expert going out and doing all the business development or the work would isolate the rest of the team. It just would. And that's not fulfilling. Like, not everybody is doing Excel spreadsheets or expenses and being the most fulfilled. Often they can be, but you've got to be connected to purpose, don't you? Yeah. Like, to actually think that my contribution matters. That to me is so key. It's also what I experienced when I was working at my career. Like, I worked in equity sales on a trading floor once upon a time, and you want to make a difference. Mm-hmm. Even though you're doing some tiny part of it, it's also what humans need. It's one of our values. We want to belong and we want to contribute. Yes. So knowing that, of course, I send all sorts of messages to my teams before I'm into a BD meeting. I'm like, I'm walking in, wish me luck. So I'm using it to captivate my own confidence and community. I tell them how it went afterwards. Every Monday meeting, we talk about what's our number one priority and what you contributed to how we won clients or who.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite bit. I'm really glad you mentioned that. I love that.
Okay. Yeah. It's, so social media, the more messages that we have out in the world, that's not direct sales as such. That's sharing our IP and our thought leadership. But Zalia on our team, I always mention, well, it's your idea that went out to the world. Amazing. And then Greg is writing a book now. So I'm like, amazing. That's how his idea will get out in his own lane. We always celebrate wins on Fridays. So simple, here was my win for the week. And it's really interesting to see as themes what the teams say. So I listen into actually what was important to them. And then I'll intentionally talk about the week as it relates to them. We always talk about simple things like, okay, so we're really focused on development. So we all go to Vistage sessions or we all do something for ourselves. When you go, then I'll talk about, here's how to talk about us. You know, the words matter. So why would you say we're a training company when we're not? We do global leadership development. We coach. Like, I just want it to feel like, wow, we're doing something really exciting and here's the best way to represent it. Right. So when people feel it in their heart, then they'll do it. And also then it's not selling. It's like, here's what I'm doing. And then the other team feel a part of it. So for me, that's just constant communication and sharing excitement. Even when we lose clients, I think the same thing is important. Like, I tell everyone immediately, this is a seed that's forming. This is maybe somebody who's going to be a tall poppy with us. And then we get excited and we track it along the way. And when it doesn't happen, because of course not everyone at the same time steps in, we talk about the fact that we've got certainty now. So what I don't want to do is chase people who don't see the value or can't picture. We want clients who are amazing and are open to this development work. So if it's not going to work out great, now we know, now we're going to move on and we're really clear on priorities. So, and we have a board here, it's just 2 priorities, like 1 million tall poppies and sharing our thought leadership. So there are all these different tactical things. I'm sure there's many more, but doing it ongoing makes a difference. And it, honestly, Ingrid, it makes a difference to me. When I learned early on, so I had to let go of the business when we had more team members because I have high expectations and it's my baby, like many business owners. We founded it. It's really hard to let go. But the more I did that, of course, the better ideas I got. And it felt more like I had a team behind me for when I go and do a keynote or I'm in front of a client and I want to give them the same feeling, like we're all on the bus together. We've got each other's backs. And that's really fun. Like, that's a more fun team culture to be around. And the last part, I suppose, because I hear about this so much, often people talk about, and it's probably in high performing or like pressured organizations like financial services where it's all about commerciality in business. There's this myth that, having lunches every week is, team culture or having drinks. And I agree, it is a great first step to have this social interaction. Absolutely. But the true difference of getting people bought in and like high performing and doing it together is if you're actually working on the team dynamic. Yes. And that to me is in meetings or, we have a small team, but every 2 months we have a whole day on team development. Yes. And all the little things we do in between, which are really about, I need to get to know you and you need to get to know me, and constant feedback, positive and constructive. Otherwise, how will you know what our vision is if I don't help you see it along the way?
Yeah.
And then you tell me too, because I've done 360s. I have a coach. I have thought leadership. I'm intentionally working on myself all the time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's just that openness too.
It's just beautiful, Kim. I mean, I'm personally going to go back and listen to this episode again because just the way that you have empowered and enriched your own team to be able to do what you do by having that, just really simple, clear focuses like these are our two priorities: million tall poppies, share our thought leadership. Every Friday we celebrate our wins. And you said, I listen as a leader to what matters to them. And then I feed that back to them and I share those things. I share when I'm excited because we've done that or that. Or, I put things into context. We like all of that. And then you kind of immerse them in that culture as well of what you're doing outside of the business, within the business, by having team development days. So, it becomes imbued in their being, which I just think is the best way for people to sell anything, because that belief is so deep and so natural. That's beautiful. The Lean In series for women focuses on helping women to stand in their strength. This is what I wanted to come back to earlier. What can those women listening be more intentional about in their own leadership practices to expand their capacity to be strong within and without, so that they and all of those around them thrive? I mean, besides going back and listening to your answer to the previous question, which would be my go-to, what are some of the things that you would suggest?
Yeah. Firstly, I would go to what is confident leadership. Confident leadership is how I'm performing every day. And that's know yourself, trust yourself, be yourself. So know yourself, just go back to what do I really know, how emotionally intelligent I am, what can I find out about what motivates me, my strengths. Like, how will you ever change anything if we don't take stock of the current landscape? So that's missing. Know yourself, trust yourself. Just to normalize self-doubt. The next time you make a mistake and you think, oh, why did I do that? Remember that that's what your brain is built in to actually do. So you've got 60,000 thoughts per day. Majority of them are negative. Either do nothing and just live in that, or actually actively think about what I did this morning. 2 minutes of breathing, how I got a negative news email and then thought, oh, I need to separate from that. So there's a little bit of intentionality of listening to the song before I came to see you, like I mentioned. So working on trusting yourself, and then finally being yourself. We're in this world where comparison is rife. That's for men and women. That's for all of us. We're in high-performing organizations. We are built to look around and therefore think lower of ourselves. So you have to do some work on that. And that's about putting blinkers on, about thinking how uniqueness is key, coming back to your own power, and all sorts of exercises with that. So that's the framework that I deeply, of course I believe in it, but it's also what, we created after seeing themes for years and years and years in different countries. I'm like, oh, if you're trying to be a better leader or team, start with these 3 elements.
How beautiful.
Underneath that, though, for Lean In, I know a huge theme is advocacy. So yes, I would tell women to be more intentional, like high performing, period. Be intentional. Don't jump from meeting to meeting. Use your 5 minutes before to actually think about goal, purpose. Where's my confidence? These are everyday things. Assertion, key. The amount of women who are contemplating that they're being aggressive, you're just asking for what you want and deserve. And advocacy. Those 3, like, ask for what you want, put out in the world what you would like, ask for referrals. My business never would have grown if I hadn't have got really brave around saying, what value did you bring? I love this. Could we do it more?
Yep.
That's a journey to get to that, because there's lots of rejections, but that is what will help you. And Lean In specifically, Ingrid, that's about creating, upskilling and connection for organizations where there's often minorities of women. And so anywhere that there's a minority, you are operating in silo, and we all need connection and belonging. So that's one way, light touch over 6 months, where female leaders come together once a month over lunch and they actually feel deeply connected to these other levels of female leaders, which creates like a mentorship and a whole culture. And then they keep it going themselves by sharing best practices and stories. So that's a powerful one that starts with, a lighter touch versus in depth.
Oh my goodness. Kim Lancer, you have brought it, girl. Talk about being intentional. There is no question that you've been intentional with this interview today. It's been a beautiful conversation from my perspective. I've loved every second of it. Where can people find you when they want to go, God, I want to work with Kim. She is extraordinary. I want to be intentional. I want to know myself. I want to trust myself. I want to be myself. I want to be more of what I could be. How do they find you, Kim?
Well, I want everyone to be looking like you are when you said that, Ingrid. Like, yes, I'm so excited. I'm like, great, you've come to the right place. LinkedIn, definitely. So look up Tall Poppies Leadership on LinkedIn. We have all sorts of thought leadership for posts and tips every week. Of course, our website, so www.tallpoppies, or one word, .us, and then you can read about teams coaching women. And same with the course. If you're listening and you're just thinking, you know what, it would be great if I got more insight about myself and just got a bit more confident, it's cost effective to do something for yourself. So go and buy the course, do it over an hour, and then you can contemplate what else an organization or you might need.
Excellent. Well, we'll include all of those links. So we'll absolutely make sure of that. They'll be in the show notes. And I have, again, thank you so much, Kim, for taking the time to have a chat with me, and I'll look forward to maybe spending a little bit more time together when I'm next over in Perth.
Definitely. Let's do it. Thank you so much. That was a pleasure.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.